Hi everyone, so it's winter time and cuffing season's here, and you may be wondering, do you have time to be in a relationship in medical school? So I asked a bunch of medical students at various medical schools throughout the country this question, as well as a few tips on how to make a relationship work in medical school, and here's what they said. So can you date or be in a relationship in medical school? The answer was almost always yes. There were a few people that said it wasn't ideal or they wouldn't recommend it, but overall most students I interviewed mentioned that it would be possible and even workable in medical school. Is it ideal? No, but as with anything, life still goes on, and even with a really busy schedule, you can still make time for things like a relationship if it is a priority to you. So for single people, I knew single people who were dating through either word of mouth by like friends or family. I knew people who were dating not so much within the same class in medical school, at my school at least, but more so with medical school students of other classes. So either a class above or a class below, and this is beneficial since if you end up breaking up, it's not as awkward seeing that person around all the time, since your class schedules are probably different. There are also single people that use things like dating apps which are popular nowadays, Bumble, Tinder, ethnic group specific or other demographic specific ones, meeting people online through friends or family, or dating within the school were some of the ways single people met other people if they wanted to be in a relationship. For people in relationships, there were people that came in a long-term relationship, they were just dating. There were people that came in engaged and that got married. There are people that were married. There are people that came in with kids, and there were also people that came in and had kids in medical school. There are also people that ended up getting married in medical school who got engaged either in medical school or before medical school. So regardless of where you're at in the relationship process, whether you want to date or get married or have a family, there are definitely other people in that same position who still do well in medical school and manage to balance their family or their relationship with medical school. However, I did notice that people who tended to have kids in medical school often had a little bit of a harder time, but you can still make it work. So regardless of if you're single or in a relationship and you want to make a relationship work effectively in medical school, you need to make sure to set your expectations, wants, and your needs, and be really upfront right at the beginning with how much time you're going to be able to spend, how much money you're going to have to spend with that other person or with a family if you're trying to have a family. And it really just comes down to being open and honest and deciding if your situation and the other person's situation will be compatible with each of your goals. Regardless of what type of situation you're in, you are going to have to sacrifice some time, obviously. While there is time to do almost anything in medical school, you're not going to have as much time as you want to devote to that activity or to that thing. In medical school, it's hard enough as it is to take good care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and in all these other ways. So if you are in a relationship or you're trying to date, then you're going to have less time to do things like maybe like work out as long as you want, or do as many hobbies as you want to do, even study as much as you want sometimes. But medical school should always be your first priority, and after that you can still have a relationship. You just have to sacrifice some of the other things that you might have in your limited free time that you'd be able to do if you were single. Especially in your first years of medical school, it's more of a flexible time. As you go into like clinical rotations, you'll be busy all the time probably. Fourth year gets a little bit easier, and then intern year and residency gets a lot busier. So you'll have to plan for those times, and certain of those time periods are probably better or worse for things like trying to meet new people or have kids. It'd probably be better to do those things when you have more time, and it'd probably be better to be in a more of a stable long-term relationship at those times when you're like super busy and you don't have to devote as much time to either getting to know someone or taking care of kids, taking care of new babies. So just remember that with medical school there's going to be time and maybe emotional energy sacrifice, and since you're going to be so preoccupied with medical school and then also trying to take care of yourself mentally, physically, maybe spiritually, you will have less time to devote to a relationship or to dating or whatever stage of the relationship process you're in. So just be aware of that and realize that there are certain times in your medical career where it's a little bit more flexible and more free to do these things, but regardless, there's never going to be a perfect time. You're going to have to sacrifice either some of your hobbies or your leisure time in some way, maybe a little bit of your study time. But if relationships are a priority to you, you can still make them work. A few tips that people recommend on how to spend time together to cut out some of the extra fluff that goes on throughout the day. So things like mindlessly browsing Facebook or playing a lot of video games if you're especially not making money from it, or just wasting time in other ways. If you cut those like half an hour moments throughout the day, or even like 5-10 minutes that add up throughout the day, you'll find that you have maybe half an hour, an extra hour a day of spending with your significant other, or spending dating, or whatever it is you want to do. You can also try incorporating your significant other into like your studying. For example, maybe have them ask you flashcard questions, maybe try to explain them to them, teach them a concept that you're learning, which would help you learn better and might be interesting for them as well and helps them get involved. Maybe do some doctoral clinical skills exams with them. They could pretend to be a certain type of patient and you could be questioning them. You could practice different, like an abdominal exam or a cardiac exam on them. And these are just ways to spend more quality time together. Another option that you can use if you want to spend more time with your significant others, to just simply block off parts of the day, maybe like an hour in the evening, or maybe if you're too busy, a lunch or dinner date on the weekends, or whatever amount of time that you can spend a day or a week or a month even to your significant other. Try to block off that amount of time, have that like an appointment that you guys can look forward to spend quality time together, to make sure that you're still cultivating that relationship. Should you be in a relationship with a person who's in medicine, maybe another medical student, or a person who is not in medicine, there are pros and cons to each, so I'll just go over a few that I've encountered. The pros of dating someone or being in a relationship with someone who's in medical school is that, one, they can relate to you. So this applies to not just things like happy moments with like good things that happened either in your performance or with like patient care, but also the bad moments. So things like a patient getting sick or a tragic event or people dying. Those things can be really heavy, and having someone who's in the medical field who also experiences those things makes it a lot easier to relate, as opposed to someone who isn't in the medical field at all. The person in medicine can also relate to how demanding the schedule and the training is, and some of the more negative aspects of medical school and medical training, and it's easier for them to relate to you on a deeper level. It's also nice to share cases with someone in medicine, even just share interesting like articles or news about science or medicine, and since you guys are both in the medical field, you both have an interest in those things. Lastly, if you are in the same year or in the same program, your schedules could match up, and that's nice since you have more time together. The cons of being with a medical student are that, well, one, often your schedules don't match up even if you are in the same program. Even if you have the same residency, you could be assigned to different shifts. And since medical school students and doctors are very busy, it's going to be even more challenging to schedule your time together or have more time together if you guys are all busy all the time. And maybe, let's say one person has night shifts and one person has day shifts and you guys are both working like 12 hours. It's going to be hard to make your schedules overlap. So scheduling is a big issue. Having enough time together if you are in medicine, since both people are very busy all the time. Another downside could be if you want to think about other things besides medicine, your partner might want to talk about medicine and you may want to de-stress and not think about it at all, which could be a problem. So for being in a relationship with someone who's not in medicine, a positive is that they often have more of a flexible schedule, so it's more likely that you guys can spend time together, especially if you're super busy and your schedule is changing all the time. This isn't always the case if they're in a very demanding career as well, but it's more often than not the case. One more positive of being in a relationship with someone that's not in medicine is that once you can come home, you can just talk about a lot of different things, and you can even forget about medicine for a little bit. And sometimes it's nice to just decompress and not think about medicine at all when you've been thinking about it for like the last 12 hours and dealing with patients and dealing with insurance companies and having a tough time trying to diagnose like thousands of different diseases. Next, I think there's a lot of value in diversity. Having different opinions, different skill sets, different views in a relationship can not only strengthen the relationship, but can also strengthen your development and improve your development overall as a person, and even maybe translate to improving yourself as a clinician who is diverse in their viewpoints and their skills. So for being in a relationship with a non-medical person, the downsides to this would be that it's harder to relate, harder to understand your schedule, harder to maybe commiserate with you or empathize with you when you have like a tragic patient death or things like that. If they don't like medicine or science even, which is very possible, or they're not super interested in it, they might not want to spend a lot of time talking about medicine or science. They might not be as interested in like a interesting finding in a patient case that you found or an interesting random disease. So not being able to relate in your medical or science interest and not being able to relate as much on some of the emotional and scheduling and the stressful things that you're going through might be one of the bigger downsides of being in a relationship with someone that's not in medicine. If you are a significant other of someone who's in medical school, it seems like a lot of those individuals benefit from things like support groups. So either if that's in person, if that's a Facebook group, there's some subreddits for significant others of medical school students and doctors. So either an online community or an in-person community could be helpful. It really depends on you, and I think that seems to be one of the best ways to either commiserate with others, maybe get some tips, or work through different problems that they're having. So those are a few experiences and tips that some of the medical students I talked to brought up. So let me know down below in the comments if you have any experiences with relationships that I didn't bring up, or any tips for people in relationships in medical school. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't, and I hope some of this was helpful. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope the rest of the year ends well for you guys. Take care. Shout out to Dr. J for watching my videos and commenting on almost all of them.